Hi there. I am so excited and grateful that I get to introduce you to Emily Liou. Emily is a career happiness coach. Yes, is that not the best title in the whole world? And a career expert at cultivate.com. She helps professionals land jobs they love because she believes life is too short to not wake up happy on Monday. And you will totally hear that in our conversation. She truly does believe that. As a former recruiter and HR professional for Fortune 500 companies and Silicon Valley startups, she knows exactly what allows professionals to stand out, get visible, and get hired. She has been featured all over the place, including Forbes, Fast Company, Business Insider. She has phenomenal career coaching programs and e-courses, really helping professionals make a really smooth transition. What I loved about meeting Emily is we were looking for someone to help bolster the content within our own program on how to get a grant writing job. And so I approached her and said, "Hey, we need help with salary negotiation. Is that something you do?" And she said, "Yes." And we got on the phone. And by the end of the phone call, we knew we had values alignment. And so I am so thrilled to be able to introduce Emily to this community because she gets it. And so many of the conversations that we have in the collective and on this platform, they align with what she's doing on a much more general scale. So I know that if you're very interested in grant writing and you're making that career change into grant writing, her advice is going to resonate with you. And I also know that if you're like, I don't know if grant writing's it, but I've landed on this page, I also think that you will find this video so, so good as you think about what would make you happy when you wake up on Monday in terms of your career. So enough of the babble. Let's dive in. I know you're going to love this episode. Welcome, Emily. I am so excited to dive into careers today with you.
Woohoo! I'm excited as well.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive straight in. I think the statistic for millennials staying at a job is like 2.5 years. So are people unhappy in their jobs? Why are people switching? Why are we seeing so many resources around changing careers?
Hmm, that's a great question. And the first thing that came to mind is a recruiting term called leapfrogging.
Okay.
The average salary increase, like if you're meeting your marks, you get a 3% increase. If you're a really great performer, you may be getting like a 5% increase. So there's actually a term that's really common, especially within the tech industry, where switching careers every year or even 2 years is commonplace because
Mm.
the average salary jump when you secure a new job is typically a 20% increase. So I think that's always been happening. And maybe, I don't know if it's just like recent years, but I feel like the pandemic could be a big part of what has really got people thinking like, do I like what I do? Do I want to go into an office 5 days a week now that I've gotten a taste of remote work? I think now people are starting to really prioritize what would a meaningful life look like. I think there's so much content online that is very inspirational in terms of, oh, like it doesn't have to look this way. Like the way that your grandparents stayed at one company and climbed up this ladder to get a parachute 20 years later. Like that's not what's happening in 2023. I think too, like life is just so much busier. Time flies. You and I, before hitting record, we're just like, it's
Yeah,
fall already. But
exactly.
there's so many different priorities that should take place. And, whether it's having to take care of a family member or starting a family, those priorities and those values shift. So that's my take on why
Yeah.
people are starting to realize, oh, I don't have to put up with this crappy boss or this crappy workplace. Like I have options, I have choices. And I think that's really empowering.
Oh, I completely agree. So most of the people that you see that you're talking to are in your community. Are they people who want a similar job in the same industry, but they want to earn more money, they want different work conditions, or are they thinking about switching careers altogether?
Both. I definitely have people that are like, I like what I do. I just want more compensation, or the commute is no longer working for me, or I want to find like a workplace that actually feels fulfilling and meaningful, and I feel connected to that product or that service. Um, but then I have another camp that is like, ugh, I just got here. Like, I've just been taking any job that fell into my lap. I haven't been
Mhm.
intentional. I don't even know what I want. So, like, is it even possible to make a move? Because this has been my experience. Who's going to hire me? And so that's 100% possible, but it really becomes, it starts with becoming intentional.
Mhm. So how
Mhm.
do you help people become more intentional?
Oh, career clarity is number one. And I always tell people you are not ready to job search if you don't know who you are. Because when I hear people say, I don't know what I want to do, what are those titles out there for me? What I'm
Mhm.
really hearing is, Emily, I don't know who I am. And I'll tell you, Alex, so many job seekers are fixated on titles. Like, what is that one title I need to type in? But the analogy I like to use is, when you're dating someone, you don't say, like, I'm looking for a Christopher. Like, please send me a Christopher. No, you're able to describe like the qualities, the characteristics. I want someone who's fun and vibrant, who really values family or wants to have a family. And so the same thing happens in your career. How are you describing who you are and what you want and what's important to you? How are you describing the strengths and what actually brings you joy, what comes naturally to you? Like, when you can start to figure out those ingredients, then you can get clearer on, okay, this is what I can visualize doing in any type of organization. Or when I think about that one organization I want to work for, this is how I can show up. This is what I can give to them. This is where I can provide value.
Absolutely. I mean, I just had this beautiful conversation with a grant writer this morning who was asking me about time management. And what I realized she was asking me actually about was energy management.
Mm,
And the task that she was procrastinating on and being a bad time manager around and like putting all this guilt and shame was actually a task that she no longer found joyful, that wasn't playing to her strengths. And so it was burning her out. And yeah, she was procrastinating because she didn't like to do it. And so it was just really cool to kind of reflect back and talk to her about, can we hire this part out? You know exactly what brings you joy. Like, let's focus on your strengths and your assets, and just, pivot a little bit on the things that you don't enjoy. I love all of that about making intentional. One of the things that I know our grant writers struggle with, especially when they're career switching. So I imagine that lots of people struggle with this if they are thinking about not only a new job, but a new career.
mm,
How do you carve out the time to be intentional about what your assets are, what your strengths are, what you want when you have four kids running around and a mortgage to pay and all of the numerous things that happen in our life, good and bad? How do you help people carve out that intentionality and really come up with their strengths?
that's really beautiful. And I love what you just shared about time versus energy, because I absolutely agree that everything has to go back to energy. And when you think about how you're job searching, there's so many ways to find a job. Like, you don't have to do, if applying online makes you want to like gouge your eyes out, you don't have to do that. You can reach out to others. Some people like love connection, but then of course when they're sitting behind a computer, it takes them like 2 hours to put in a 10-minute application, right?
Yeah.
So the question becomes like, how do you understand what your strengths are? Well, I think a really important task to start doing, if you're not entirely sure, is just starting to keep a tracker, like really journaling.
Mm,
This is the activity that I'm doing. Do I consider this draining? Do I want to eliminate it? Do I want to automate it? Do I even need to do this altogether? And
mm,
I think as you start to look at that and maybe inventory all of the other tasks and responsibilities you've done in the past, you can really start to pull some common threads and themes around, this is what I volunteer for. This is what I want to do more of. This is what I want like 80% of my job to be centered on, because there's always going to be aspects of your job, even as an entrepreneur, that you just
Yes.
have to like eat the frog and do it.
Yep.
Some things you're not going to be able to outsource. But if you're spending, like hear a lot of my clients say, I'm spending 80% of my time and my energy and my day focused on these activities that just absolutely drain me. And not in a good way. Like it was such a big challenge and I was putting all my energy and
Yeah.
effort into it.
Yeah.
It's draining in the sense of I just keep procrastinating or putting this off because I don't even want to do it.
I love what you pointed out about draining can be good and bad, or right? We can be drained to a point of burnout, and we also can be drained because we put so much energy and passion into something.
Mhm.
And it was a really fun challenge. I just like that little difference.
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction because there are, like, a lot of us do derive energy from
Mhm.
working hard. But there's also the caveat of, are you just putting a goal, achieving it, and then setting the next goal? And it's like this constant slow burn, is what I call
Yes.
it. Nobody burns out overnight. It's like a slow burn.
Mhm.
Or are you taking the time to actually celebrate and enjoy and take a break, a very much deserved break, before you go on to the next? And so I think that's also really important, especially if you're a self-proclaimed overachiever.
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. One of our well, two of our core values are soul care and celebrating wins. And it is so vital, especially like these career changers. You might be burned out at work and you keep doing that if you're an overachiever, or you're just burned out for a million other reasons. And
Mhm.
then you're also trying to career change. Like we have to build celebration and soul care into it, or it's just going to be a continuation of the same.
Absolutely. And for any job seeker out there, especially career transitioners, I also want you to celebrate the mini milestones along the way because so many people feel like, oh, it's not really a true celebration until I get the offer letter. But in order to get the offer letter, there's actually so many steps you have to achieve in
Mhm.
order to finally get there. And I think that's really important when you're feeling overwhelmed. It's because you have this big mountain that you need to climb. So are you not going to take a break and rest and look back to be like, oh, wow, I climbed that much? So many job seekers don't do that. And that's when they start to let the rejections, the ghosting, the no's to pile on. And
Mhm.
ultimately, they start to question themselves. They start to
Yeah.
doubt themselves. They start to forget, oh yeah, this is why I'm worthy, or this is what value I can bring, or this is why I am good enough for the job. So a lot of it becomes mindset because if you don't believe that you can do it, or that you're worthy of it, or you're good enough for it, well, that's going to inform the actions that you take, and that's the results you're going to get, or non-results, that will continue feeding that pattern of, I don't think I'm good enough, or I don't think this is possible.
Ah, I just love and resonate with everything you just said.
Mhm.
I just love it. Okay, so I want to circle back to a little bit ago where you were talking about we don't have to type in Christopher into the search profile, right? We have all these different ways of finding a job. And so you and I have talked about networking before and utilizing different methodologies to actually land that new job. Can you talk about the other options out there for career transitioners or just people who want a new job to actually get that new job versus just being on LinkedIn constantly?
Yeah. One of my golden rules is to have more conversations than applications.
Nice.
I really believe that so many serendipitous or synchronicitous opportunities
Yeah.
open up because
Mhm.
of the pure energy of showing up in the world, being in that room, whether it's virtual or in person, to say, like, this is who I am, this is what I want to support people with. The more you can share your message, the more people can hear that. And whether they have the opportunity or they know someone who has the opportunity, it just opens up so many doors and possibilities. And I always say, like, when you lose your mojo, it's because you can't see the possibilities in you or around you.
Mm.
And having possibilities truly is having that trust of knowing, like, I'm doing what's in my control and putting myself out there, even if it feels vulnerable, even if it feels scary. I'm just going to share my message because I know that I have something of value to offer to the world. Um, and so when it comes to finding opportunities, I think for any career transitioner, the best thing you can do is lead with curiosity. Who can I
Mm,
get to know? Who do I admire?
right.
Who's like 1 or 5 steps ahead of me that I can genuinely hear about their journey and how they got started, and be open to receiving any feedback, any recommendations, any suggestions that they have for someone who wants to achieve something similar. And along the way, that's actually how the referrals happen. That's how people get to know you and trust you
Mhm.
to say, oh, I can vouch for that person. They were really kind. They showed up. They were on time. They were reliable. They came prepared. They were informed. All of these things that allow you to have an opportunity because of that one conversation.
I 100% agree. We teach it through informational interviews, and this is like it is exactly what we say to many of our grant writers or grant writer to bees is to talk to people, everyone and anyone, and tell them about what you're doing and make these connections. It is really hard for our introverts and for the people who are facing a tremendous amount of imposter syndrome and not feeling that worthiness. Like, how do you help your introverts or your people who are very scared that they're not worthy overcome that and still reach out to people?
Okay, let's start with the introverts
Okay.
because I too am an introvert. And I think there's a really big misconception because when we think about introverts versus extroverts, we often define extroverts as loud, fun, vibrant, the life of the party. But introverts are just as powerful. They're not going to be domineering in a conversation. They're not like in the spotlight, but actually, introverts are very deep listeners and connectors, and that is their superpower. So it may not be you're going into this event with 1,000 people and you're like navigating the room. No, you're going to find that one person that you can really dial in on and have a deep conversation where that person feels more connected to you than perhaps maybe the introvert would experience. So I think that would be my biggest advice
Yeah.
is stop looking at being an introvert as a negative or like a disadvantage because it
Yes.
very well is an advantage. So the reframe to that is I'm an introvert and I'm a very powerful connector. That's the
I
introvert.
love
Now,
that. I just want to like pause and say like yes, 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 and yes. Okay, now we can go on to the people who may not be feeling so worthy.
yeah, so I think that's the beautiful thing about informational interviews is the people who are going to say yes, they derive a lot of joy from being able to help another person. These
Mm,
are the people that love mentoring. These are the people who probably have had a very similar experience. They've had somebody who has opened a door for them, has given them a chance, has really shown kindness, and they're wanting to most likely pay it forward. And so as somebody with imposter syndrome or feeling like I don't deserve to be here, like what could I possibly offer to this person? I think that is a big offering is giving that person the opportunity to help and support you. Because I'll tell you, I talk to people all day long when I ask them like, so what's your purpose? What do you like to do? They're
yeah.
like, I don't know, I just want to help people. So,
Yeah.
people love that. And I also think that, especially in the corporate world,
Mhm.
professionals do not get enough recognition.
Yes.
So a little bit of flattery can go a long ways, like, wow, I
Mhm.
love that you have this background, or I admire how you've climbed up XYZ, or I saw that you successfully transitioned from here to here. Congratulations. How did
Yeah.
you do it? Again, people love talking about themselves. They love being able to offer advice and guidance. But I will add that what I find a lot, and this is being on the mentoring side, where a
Mhm.
lot of people have asked me for informational interviews over the years,
Yeah.
and I've said yes. I'm giving the gift of my time, my experience, my knowledge.
Mhm.
And what I find is after like a 30-minute conversation, it becomes very like that's the end of it actually. Like there's not this ongoing conversation after that. Typically they say thank you and then we part ways. So for somebody who's requesting the informational interview, I highly recommend that you take notes of what did that person share with me? What is it that I want to try? Maybe they recommended a book or a course or referred me to so and so. Take the time to soak in what you want, test out what you want, try it on, and then give that update to that person.
I love
Write
that.
an email saying, thank you so much, Alex, for sharing XYZ with me. I did it, and here's what I was able to achieve, or here's how like what I yielded. Or maybe it's, hey, I tried this and I didn't get this result. I got this instead. What would you do from here? Can I ask, like, is there anything that I can do differently? Um, by the way, this is how you also build a relationship, but also mentorship. You know, you don't go straight up and ask someone, hey, Alex, could you be my mentor? Can you
Right.
mentor me? But it's through this action of like, wow, this person actually valued my time and my energy and my knowledge and my information. They're actually trying, like, they're putting it into action. Of course, I want to help them succeed. So that's what
Absolutely.
I would recommend because a lot of people, and guilty here, like when I was in my 20s, I was asking for informational interviews and I was like, okay, bye. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much. But it's so helpful and so appreciated when you can close the loop and follow up.
Absolutely. And we love it when they get back to us, right? We are overwhelmed when someone you talked to 6 months ago or a year ago says like, hey, how are you doing? Or like, hey, I thought about you and so I actually referred you to a different person, right? And then they re-engage and it makes our whole entire day. So then to also recognize that that's the same on the other end. We get to make each other's days when we actually yeah, form meaningful relationships in whatever that form that looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think so much has become very transactional. Like, I see a lot of job seekers that ask, how am I supposed to get a stranger to refer me to a job? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't. You have to earn that referral. And
Yeah.
that comes through having genuine relationships. And I don't even like to call it networking. When I look at networking, I actually think about it as building a genuine friendship or a genuine connection. Because
Yes.
if you think about it, the people that you refer, like instantly, if somebody asked, hey, do you know a project manager? Or hey, do you know a learning and grant writer? You would be like, oh, actually, yeah, like my friend so and so or my cousin so and so. It's somebody you've had a level of trust built with.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. Oh, I love this. So let's get real tactical. I'm unhappy in my career. Do I need to know what my dream job is to be able to work with you? Or do you help people find their dream job?
I help people find their dream job and then land it. So
Okay.
the very first step, well, the first step is confidence. Like you have to believe that you are capable and able to make that pivot. So oftentimes there's a lot of internal dialogue, a lot of limiting beliefs around, well, I don't think it's possible for me because I'm too old. Like maybe if I were in my 20s and didn't have a mortgage and kids. But then I talk to people in their 20s that are like, well, maybe if I had more experience.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's never a right time except now. Like to me, if you've gotten the nudge, like it's constantly showing up for you. It's not just like this one rash, impulsive decision, but it's nudging you. That's your intuition saying, okay, I have a bigger vision for you. And when you get that vision, this is when you take action. So, first and foremost, it's the confidence of I can do this. Every career pivot is possible if I have the right mindset and the right strategies. And truly, like if you're here today, whatever here is, and you want to get to wherever here is, there's a roadmap there. Like it's not this insurmountable mountain to climb. There may be multiple steps. You might have to consider, okay, maybe this is a two-prong switch. Like I have to get into my dream company and then move into my dream role. Or it could be like, actually, I have a safety cushion. I'm gainfully employed. So I'm okay taking a little bit longer and building out the strategies. But you have to be able to know where you're inputting into the GPS because if you don't know what that role is, how are you going to know
Yeah.
when to get off the freeway? How are you going to know like where to turn? You're just going to meander and you may eventually get there, but it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah.
So when you have clarity, this is when everything else becomes a lot easier. You don't have to have 20 versions of your resume or elevator pitch floating around. You just know, and you know who to
Mhm.
talk to, what you need to say, and what you need to share with them essentially.
Yes, I think it is, and it's so helpful to do this in community. And so I know you have a community aspect too. Like it's
Mhm.
really hard to feel like one, you have to come up with the whole map, you have to feel confident, you have to believe you're worthy, and you have to know what you're doing. And you're going to do this all alone on top of everything else. Like, no, that's what we're here for. We're here to help like provide some roadmaps, to help provide the inputs into the GPS, and to surround you with the support that's needed to do uncomfortable and scary things.
Absolutely. You nailed it. Anytime you're moving out of your comfort zone, you need people to be like minded around you to lift you up, to share, like, this is possible. Because otherwise, you go into like the same level of comfort. Like, this is just what I knew. This is how it's always been. This is how it's always going to be. So
Mhm.
I think that's why in my program, you're absolutely right. Like, the community aspect, that is everyone's favorite. They're like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this, but two, wow, so and so just did this. That's possible for me too, then, because
Exactly.
they didn't think it was possible before joining a program, but here they are on the other side. So I think that is very, very powerful to have proof of what is possible. It goes back to the possibilities. If it's possible for one, it's possible for all.
Yes. Oh, you're so good. You're so good. Okay. I think we covered this next question that I had, but I wanted to rapid fire question you so that people can get to know you better. So I would love to know what's one word to describe your dream lifestyle.
Wabi sabi.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now you have to tell me more.
Okay, that's a Japanese concept of the art and beauty of imperfect things. So if you actually type in wabi sabi design, that's my dream aesthetic and dream home. But it's basically like a lot of wood that is, not perfectly buffed out, but it's beautiful and like the
Yes.
centerpiece. A lot of rounded edges, a lot of hard, it's usually round edges in wabi
Oh,
sabi design, but it's basically the idea of like I can take something and make it beautiful as is, like it's perfectly imperfect.
oh, I love that. Okay. This one can be one word. Next vacation spot.
Tokyo.
Lovely. Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Oh, me too. What are you reading right now?
Oddly enough, nonfiction. But I will say that I really love, oh, I'm blinking on the names, of course, but any kind of like rom com, like romance chick lit type of
Ooh,
book.
love that. Oh my gosh, you and Meredith could just sit there and read together. She doesn't watch TV, but she reads these rom-com novels, and I'm like, this is just as trashy as the trash TV I watch sometimes. And she's like, I know. I'm sure yours might not be so trashy, but anyway. Okay, last TV show you binged.
Oh, the One Piece.
Oh, lovely. And what is your superpower?
From what I'm told, just being able to
Yeah.
bring joy into the room.
I agree. I
Oh,
agree with
thank
that tremendously.
you.
Okay, so last question for you. Where can people find you? You are an incredible ally to those who are searching for their dream job, and I want people to know where to find you so that they can have more conversations.
Yeah, so I'm really active on LinkedIn and Instagram. So LinkedIn is my name, Emily Liou, Liou, and Instagram is Cultivate. Nobody can spell it, so hopefully it's in your show notes.
I will definitely put it in there. Mhm.
And that's my website as well.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so excited. And for unicorns who are in the program, you get a full deep dive with Emily, and I'm very, very excited for that deep dive. I am just so grateful for you. I think, one, I want to express my gratitude of just another woman out there who's doing a community based um, offering that is helping people in finding their dream job. And I know we are very niche and like if you're into grant writing, we will help you build that path. But I think for so many people out there who don't know what to do. To have you as a resource is just incredible. So I'm just grateful for you, one, for the friendship that we get to develop, and then also for the immense amount of impact that you're having on people's lives. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thanks, Alex.